Hello and welcome to Old Gold Tech, the show that reviews technology from yesterday, today. This is a short new video podcast brought to you by two guys who love old technology. I'm Nick.
And I'm Neil. And Nick and I was talking the other day and we realised that there wasn't much thought about how far technology has come over the last 25 years.
There isn't.
Now most shows talk about the new stuff and all those new gadgets, but we're different. We want to talk to you about the old stuff.
That's completely correct, Neil. Firmware this, revision 2 of that, cell processors thrown here and there. Now we're not in any way condemning new technology, far from it. It's just that old technology has helped us to create our living room toys of today. Neil,
yeah.
The technology wrestle is something that's private and should only be kept on the camera.
It was in there for a reason, I think.
We know we want to get some fans, but we don't want to be exposing ourselves too much. We have girlfriends, really.
We don't want to see that.
Basically, we just want to pay our respects to forgotten tech comrades.
So each month we're going to be featuring some classic tech topics such as mobile phones, home user PCs and game consoles, and if that wasn't enough to whet your technology appetite, we're going to be taking part in some rather interesting technical challenges.
Now we will be keeping one foot firmly inside 2009. We want this show to evolve, so if you have any ideas for shows, or if you have some classic tech that you want us to cover, drop us an email. Also, if you've got any old memories of any cool tech that you had when you were a kid, or maybe a young adult, please drop us an email at fans@oldgoldtech.com. Okay, so our first blast from the past will be two classic home user PCs.
Okay, so the beige beast that is the Commodore 64, if you remember that, and the Knight Rider of home computing, the Sinclair ZX Spectrum 48K.
The 64 was the best Christmas present I ever had and was actually a product from Commodore International. Now apparently they released over 30 million units.
That's an awful lot of plastic.
It is indeed. Now the 64 stood for Commodore Business Machines model number, what could it have been? Oh, 64. Now that's hardly a catchy name compared to your Xboxes or GameCubes of today.
So this system superseded the notorious and not very good VIC-20, and under the plastic bonnet laid a throbbing 985 kilohertz processor and a massive 64 kilobytes of memory. And let's take a moment to consider those figures, shall we?
I do not need any time around this.
Okay.
No email, no online gaming, no checking the weather, no nothing. And no Facebook.
Wow, so let's put things into perspective a little. A typical PC of today would be the equivalent of 2,500 Commodore 64s. And let's just take a look how far we've come over the last 27 years. The Commodore 64 came with just 64K of RAM, and modern gaming rigs of today can run up to 8 gigabytes and more.
That's a lot of RAM.
It is indeed.
Now one thing I loved about my 64 was the graphics. They were amazing. Favourite characters such as Dizzy and PC Fuzz were brought to life on my screen. The 64 had a built-in graphics processor made by MOS technology and ran at a whopping 320 by 200 res.
That's quite small, isn't it?
That is quite small. Isn't that the iPhone resolution?
Yeah, probably. Just about.
Now one thing that also stands about the 64 was that I had the later revision that had a badass cartridge slot in it, which took away those laborious loading sessions.
The key technology of a cartridge slot would later become an integral part of the Commodore 64 successor, the Commodore 64 GS. Now you either had one of those Commodore 64 things as Nick had here, or you were part of the Sinclair ZX Spectrum clan, as I was. The Spectrum 48K was created by a British inventor and entrepreneur, Sir Clive Sinclair, back in 1982, if you can remember that, and superseded the now legendary ZX81. The first generation Spectrum had rubberized keys and came in 3 memory variations, 16, 48 and 128K, and was based on the old Sinclair Z80 chip. Later revisions, such as the ZX Spectrum Plus, released in 1984, and the one that I had plastic keys and larger footprint. And I remember playing Monic Minor and classic games like Night Law. These were great, Fantastic. However, another interesting fact for you was that the Spectrum was in fact quicker than the Commodore 64, and in comparison to today's tech, a single PC would be the equivalent of 857 Spectrum 48Ks.
Ooh.
Now, we Spectrum users had to work for our gaming fun, and by that means we had to attach a tape recorder to get the games to load in the first place. Not like one of those fancy Commodore 64 things that had that sexy game slot.
Oh yes, well mine took tapes as well. But Neil's did not have a cartridge slot a la my 64, but it did need to play the games via a cassette into the 64. Now the games were recorded onto tapes as sound and code. Okay, so what you had to do is play the tape into the PC, that would then interpret the sound into code and would allow me to play such games as Bubble Bobble and Rainbow Islands. Now one other cool feature back then was the publication of magazines such as Commodore Format, Commodore World and Sinclair User. Now these magazines actually did what today's magazines do. They review games and come with a free audio cassette filled with demos and coding.
So you could actually load your own games and stuff.
You could do that, yeah.
Years of practice.
Took a while, but you could do it. Now one aspect of the games that made them so memorable, and actually it was memorable, and some people do listen to it now in their free time, was the music from these games. Hit me baby one more.
Got a show to
time.
Show to do, sorry.
I'm not sorry, I like dancing.
The music you've just heard was mostly down to a guy called Rob Hubbard, who created the music for a lot of the popular titles and wrote music for over 75 Commodore 64 games. Now originally Rob set out to write music related to educational software, but became famous and a hero to us all in the gaming market.
In 1989, Rob joined the now games behemoth Electronic Arts as a composer, but now works as their audio technical director. So check out some of the credits on their new titles now and you might actually see his name come up. Now Rob is apparently also looking to write music for a symphony orchestra, but do not dare hassle the man about this because it's just an internet rumour.
Now if you didn't have a Commodore 64 or ZX Spectrum, there are still many ways to play classic games such as Dizzy, Rainbow Island and my favourite, Manic Miner. Emulation programs and websites allow you to instantly load the games, so you don't have to sit there anymore and watching those tricky coloured screens.
Although I do find if you're broke, if you sort of, it's getting to that last week before you get paid, you're broke, get a few cheap ales in, sit in front of the screen. Sometimes it can be about 16 hours before I actually get working.
16 hours? And you're still there in front of the...
Not missing anything.
These two machines still have a huge following, and there are loads of forums and fan sites that you can go to reminisce about your favourite machine. So go and check out our website at www.oldgoldtech.com for more information.
Okay, now C64.com is a really good source of information for 64 nuts, and for the ZX there is a fantastic site called ZXSpectrum.net, which is absolutely brilliant.
Super.
And on ZXSpectrum.net you can actually load up your favourite game through a Java platform, so it's like that.
It looks very good actually, and we've had a look. And now it's time for Where Are They Now? So, some history for you, and to find out where these two companies are. Sinclair Systems was actually purchased by Amstrad.
You're fired!
In April 1986, and brace yourself, Commodore Business Machines declared bankruptcy on April the 29th, 1994. But listen, all is not lost. Because an interesting fact is that Commodore's operational headquarters is now the broadcast studio of shopping giant QVC.
Oh, all is not lost, yeah?
Okay, sorry, QVC. So whilst these two home user PCs were great, they were actually quickly superseded by the dedicated game consoles that we see today, like the PS3, the Xbox, and the ever-growing PC market.
I agree, but I would not have wanted to start my computing life in any other way. Sure, on the Xbox I've got an emulation disc that runs Rainbow Islands and Bubble Bobble, two of my favourite games, but the graphics and the sound just aren't the same. I'd rather whack in the tape, press play on tape, and relive that half-an-hour loading just to have one go with that sound and those graphics.
Well, here at Old Gold Tech, we do play tribute to the technology of yesteryear, and we hope that you've enjoyed our first show, and I hope that it's brought back some fond memories of the old tech that we used to know and love, playing it back in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
So don't forget to email us with any ideas for shows or any of your comments, or just to say hi. You can find us on the interweb at oldgoldtech.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at oldgoldtech.
Okay, yeah, follow us on Twitter because I'm getting into that at the moment. Okay, now our next show will be focusing on something that has changed music forever.
Yes.
That's right. It's time to look at the Walkman.
No, the iPod has changed.
No, do you understand the show? When we came up with the idea, it was old gold
Yeah, but
tech,
it's-
which means that it's old.
But the iPod has been there forever.
The iPod is
no,
new.
no, no, no. iPod!
No, the Walkman is the best.